Today we are talking about the Kitty Hawk Quattro. I've had this for quite a while. It was one of the first preamps I got when I started this preamp collecting thing, and it was very hard to track down. I just grabbed it as soon as I could. It was one of those preamps that I'd always wanted to hear. I saw it in some magazine ads and stuff, and I just couldn't get my hands on one. So why didn't I show it a long time ago? I've always loved it, and it sounds great, but I've just tried to wrap my head around, like, how do I show this? What is it really that's different than other preamps? And it struck me like it's the Dumble. So stay with me, because I'm not just throwing out the Dumble name and just running with it. There's something behind it. Back in the late 70s, there was these guys, the Roy brothers in Germany. I don't know if they're German or not, but they started a boutique amp distribution company, which was, I mean, that's pretty progressive, right? So they were pulling in Mesa Boogie amps and Dumble amps. I don't know if Germany still has a high population of Dumble amps, but at one point it probably was second to the US or even the West Coast. So at some point the distribution thing fell apart, but they were still pulling these Dumble amps from Dumble, and they were still distributing them. Dumble would send just like the amp part, and then these guys would put together the chassis. And so they branded themselves Kitty Hawk and were putting together these Dumbles. And then at some point they just started doing their own Dumbles, which by all accounts were Dumbles, and possibly even Dumble was making them. So there's a lot of sort of mystery around what these Kitty Hawk Dumbles were, but there are Kitty Hawk Dumbles out there. But there are Kitty Hawk Dumbles out there, and that's the origin of the company. So in my head, you know, you look at like Mesa Boogie, early Mesa Boogies, that set the tone, and you could buy a Mesa Boogie today, and there's still this lineage, this connection of the tone of the Mesa Boogie sound. I think that's there with Kitty Hawk too. So anyway, Kitty Hawk gets through the 70s and get into the 80s and are building heads. They become a proper amp company, and Dumble's no longer affiliated. But apparently the Scorpions were using Kitty Hawks for a short while. Now when we get to the preamps in the late 80s, I think the Quattro showed up around 88, 89. The only reason I know about this preamp is because Reb Beach had this very sexy magazine ad where he's talking about how amazing it is. Now, if you go to the Reb Beach's website, in his FAQ, he says, I never used it, really. He had it in his effects rack, so he would have his heads and ran like a wet, dry, wet, and then ran the preamp side for just his wet cabs, and then he never recorded with it, so, you know, once again, we were bamboozled. But he did say it sounded great, just their heads were unreliable for the road. Key Marcello from Europe, is it Marcello or Marcello? I'm going to go with Marcello. He was running a full-blown Kitty Hawk rack, and you could see it in his instructional video. So he's running preamps and power amps. It was like a big showcase for Kitty Hawk. Now, again, on the records, I don't know if he ever used it on the records. He was known for using Marshalls and stuff, but that tone that he has is very much in the Kitty Hawk sound. It's super thick. Like, he could switch to the neck pickup and bridge pickup, and you're like, I don't know which one he's on. It's just a big, fat, round sound. So that's in there. The Kitty Hawk is a big, fat sound. It's that big, huge Dumble sound, but it also can do a little biting stuff. Now, it's funny, they were marketing this to like hair metal guys. I guess that was the rack market in '89, because it doesn't do the best sort of hair metal bitey thing. It does keys, fat leads. It does Reb's fat leads, actually, and he talks about how notes pop out when you tap, and it does. It sounds really great. They're fat. But they never mention how good it is as a classic amp. I'm going to show you both sides of this. It's a 1U 4-channel preamp. It's super heavy. It's basically like 2 channels. There's a clean with the higher gain version of it, and then dirty with the higher gain version of that. But let's plug it in. I'm running through the Fryette Power Station as my power amp, which has that classic Fryette VHT tone. Then we'll be using my IRs. So let's go. The Les Paul is going to drive it a lot harder, so the clean sound is going to be fat, but on the overdriven side, this is the cleanest version of the clean it's got. Clean sound still. It's really cool. I love that. What if we just... I mean, that's pretty Robin 40. If I could only play that way. fat, but not tight and punchy. It's definitely a more, really like old Mesa Boogie kind of Mark I thing. So it has a sound and it wants to stay in that zone. It doesn't, like the mid-range when you scoop it out, it doesn't turn into like a scooped metal sound. It is always the Kitty Hawk sound. You just have a broader mid-range or a softer laid-back mid-range or more bottom, less top, you know, the contouring. Easy contouring, but it's always a good sound. It lends to a thicker thing rather than a more like a biting old, like a plexi, overdriven plexi kind of sharp glass break kind of top end thing. It's warm and smooth like the classic Mesa Dumble maybe lineage that the company has. Beef ballsy crunch sound. Like a lot of heft under the hood there. And they balance really nicely. A lot of times when you're sharing an EQ, you're just like, what were they thinking? But it balances nice, and I think that's part of the thing. It has a sound. It's not a chameleon where you can transform it into like a super spanky clean and then a super Dimebag Darrell kind of heavy sound. Like, that's not the world it lives in. It lives in that sort of fat, old boogie sounds with sort of this Dumble-ish sort of influence with a hint of Marshall, but it's more of like a JCM 800 fat round Marshall than any kind of biting thing. The Dirty Channel has a bright and a treble, it's kind of like a presence. It seems to add gain too as it goes up. Or at least the gain has more of that spiky punch to it. There's just enough gain, but kind of not just enough gain for hard rock stuff, even in the like not heavy metal stuff. But the lead has caboodles of gain. New word. All the gain. That happened. It got dark so fast. Does that key thing where it's like fat and searing. It's got just enough crack on the note, but it's not really like edgy or brighty, which is perfect for, it's perfect for being rock, but not offending people. That's what it is. I don't know. Almost got it. No, I don't. Who am I kidding? There you go. So that is the Kitty Hawk Quattro preamp. I always thought it was funny that a German company used an old Spanish word for their preamp, but whatever, it works, gets the point across, really great. They're super hard to find. I have profiled this. I have some really cool sounding profiles on my bighairyprofiles.com site. Also on my THU Iconic Tones Volume 1, there's a really nice selection of Kitty Hawk sounds in there. And I am gonna kind of reprofile the 4 sounds I used for the opening track. And I'll put those into the Kemper pack that I have because I could just, you know, swap the file. And if you already have that pack, it should update and send to you. One note about that opening track I just wanted to point out is, you know, it's had a lot of reverb. 90% of that reverb was coming from the Lexicon PCM 60 using the long, large, biggest room sound. It's such a great sounding box. I really love that. And then the delay, which I was gonna route out and send to my PCMs, I ended up using this SSL X delay plugin that sounds awesome, and you could get all of these classic tones from. So, I mean, it's something to check out. Sometimes they run sales for, I don't know, like 50 bucks. That's when to get it. Otherwise, it's like 200 bucks. So I don't know if you want to spend 200 bucks on a delay plugin. I wouldn't. So I'd wait till it's on sale, but definitely look into that because that one it's a killer. So check out the links I have below. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff in there. And then, if you don't mind at least clicking that thumbs up button, that would be really cool. If you're this far, maybe, what does it hurt? All right. Thanks, gang, for watching. See ya.